Gritty, a bit ugly at times, but at the end of the day, it's another crucial point gained. Hello everybody and welcome back to OUFC Fan View. It's Ian here once again and it's time for another review of another Oxford United game. Today the U's were on the road again. They were away at Preston North End. Gary Rowett has started perfectly as Oxford United manager with 3 wins in a row, which has kind of turned the season on its head. He even got that elusive away win last time out against Millwall. But it was another tough away day for the U's today, away at Preston. Could Oxford make it a 4th win in a row? Could we get the first league double of the season? They came close to it. Oxford led in this game for a long time, but they were eventually pegged back. And let's be fair, they didn't really deserve to win this game, and that might be a bit of an understatement. But this one did finish all square. It finished Preston North End 1. Oxford United 1. So we'll do what we usually do on this channel. I'll go over the team news first and then I'll give a review of the game highlighting the key incidents, and then I'll give my final thoughts for both sides at the end of the video. If you want to just jump to the end and see the final thoughts, that's absolutely fine. You can use those timestamps down below, but I'd always encourage you to watch the whole thing. But either way, please hit that like button because that does help me out a heck of a lot. And if you do like the content, then consider subscribing. So let's have a look at the Oxford United team news then, and we've actually got something to talk about because it's not an unchanged side for Gary Rowett for the 4th straight game. There are some enforced changes. The skipper, Elliot Moore, came off injured against Millwall. It means Peter Chioso comes into the side at right back and Sam Long pushes into centre-back. Annoyingly for Oxford, the star man over those first 3 games has been Shemi Plaheta, and he's not available today. He can only be fit enough to be on the bench. He's replaced by Matt Phillips. Jordan Thornley and Owen Dale are back on the United bench, and it's Idris El Massouni who this time misses out altogether as Oxford look to make it 4 wins in a row. Let's move on to Preston then, and poor Heckingbottom's Lily White started the day in 16th place, just 2 points ahead of Oxford. Obviously, that is how it remained at the end of the day. But Preston have certainly become a much more solid outfit under Heckingbottom, and it is only 2 defeats in their last 10-11 now games. However, they were coming off the back of defeat to West Brom last time out, and Preston made 4 changes from that game. We saw Andrew Hughes, Ben Whiteman, Dwayne Holmes and Will Keane come into the side. Jack Watmore, Stefan Thordson, Josh Bowler and Mads Fauquier drop out of the team. You've got Emil Rees leading the line for Preston. He scored at the Kassam in the reverse fixture earlier on in the season, but there is no place in the squad for their new signing, Lewis Gibson. Let's move on to this game then, and straight away, let's just say this whole first half, Preston were much the better side than Oxford. They had numerous opportunities to score, starting on the 6th minute where it was Greenwood who lit up the game after quite a cagey opening. He turned away from Brannigan in midfield, charged towards the Oxford backline. It was a powerful, low effort from the edge of the box, and Jamie Cumming had to get down to make an excellent early save. And things weren't going well for Oxford either. After 8 minutes, Mark Harris sits down on the ground, and that's game over for Harris. He's out with an injury, and it means Dane Scarlett gets a long run out. And it was a pretty confident opening from Preston. They were moving the ball around neatly, and Oxford really struggling to keep the ball. We've seen this happen in quite a few games, especially away from home. But it was a kind break of the ball in midfield that gave Preston their next chance. It was Kessler Hayden who gathered the ball on the Preston left, and he rode a challenge to get into the penalty area, tried to curl it into the top corner, and Cumming had to beat it away. 4 minutes later, Preston missed another chance, and this was an absolute sitter. I'm not sure how they missed it, but Oxford tried to press Preston high up the pitch for once, and Preston were able to get through it, and then they had acres of space down the left hand side. Greenwood in tons of room gets into the penalty area, squares it back for Will Keane. He's only about 10 yards out. It should be a simple tap in, but he blazes it over the bar. And to make matters worse for North End, 2 minutes later, Oxford somehow took the lead out of nothing. I've been talking about how Oxford haven't really scored any lucky goals this season. Well, we can cancel that out now. This was an absolute gift from Freddie Woodman, playing it out from the back. He just inexplicably just rolls it straight to Rodrigues on the edge of the box. Rodrigues can't believe his luck, and he can stick it away easily. It's a stupid game at times. Oxford have looked nothing of an attacking threat, but they lead 1-0. And that goal did kind of take the sting out of Preston. The game did calm down a little bit after that. The initial blood and thunder had kind of gone out of the game that we saw really in the game from North End. But just towards the end of the half, though, they did kind of get another little flurry of chances and did try to end with a bit of momentum. 36 minutes, it was a slick move put together. Holmes was in a lot of space down the Preston right. He slid it into Keane again, but Keane, again, not the greatest first touch, and all he could do was just blaze it over the bar. 2 minutes later, we saw Reese run off the back of Sam Long. It was a good through ball that found him, and he tried a low effort from the edge of the box, and once again, Cumming was there to stand up to it. And Oxford rode out the Preston momentum at the end of the half and went in 1-0 up. Let's not beat around the bush here. They were incredibly fortunate to be leading in this game. A combination of Jamie Cumming, some last-ditch defending and wasteful Preston finishing have kept them out. It was a goal out of the blue from an error from Freddie Woodman, but apart from that, Oxford have barely had a sniff as an attacking threat. There's a real lack of pace and width in this Oxford lineup, and it meant that Preston could just squeeze the game, press really high on Oxford, and it just meant Oxford could really not get out of their half for large periods. But the fact they were in the lead, it meant Oxford didn't need to rush in this game, and they felt quite happy to just almost sit in their shape and be able to defend. But it's hard to imagine they won't need a second goal in this game if they're going to win it. Can the Oxford United rear guard hold out? Join me in the second half to find out. And you saw in this second half that Oxford were pretty much in time-wasting mode from the start of the second half, trying to win a lot of free kicks, taking their time over every single break of play. Kessler Hayden with a good run on 55 minutes. He carried the ball for about 30 yards, took an excellent sliding tackle from Peter Chioso to deny him as he was just about to shoot or cross. But that was the end of Chioso's game. That tackle seemed to have injured him somehow, and he went off and he was replaced by Jordan Thornley. We haven't seen Jordan Thornley in an Oxford shirt for an absolute age. Matt Phillips also came off for Hide Teravest, which meant Oxford changed their shape and went to a 3 at the back. 57 minutes and a wild hack from Will Vauxx brought down a Preston player 25 yards out middle of the goal. Greenwood stood over it, but he blazed his effort horribly high and wide. And then Oxford had a couple of efforts themselves, a few rare forays forward. Goodrum curled a shot right into the arms of Woodman, but you did sense that Oxford might start to get some joy on the break. And 5 minutes later, another decent break by Oxford. Brannigan got Teravest free on the Oxford right. Hide squared it to Rodrigues, who was free on the edge of the box, but it was a pretty scuffed effort this time from Rodrigues. He didn't make clean connection, and Woodman was easily able to gather. And I was just feeling that Oxford, as they changed to 3 at the back, matched Preston up a little bit, started to have a little bit more control, maybe for the first time in the game, and were looking relatively comfortable for the first time in the game. But lo and behold, then Preston get their equaliser. 69 minutes, it was an attack down the Preston left. It didn't look particularly threatening from Kessler Hayden, but then he dinked probably the most perfect cross imaginable right over the head of Jamie Cumming, and it meant Keane was just there to tap it in on the goal line. Now, I'm not sure why Greg Lee wasn't marking Keane or why one of the centre-backs wasn't marking Keane, but you've got to say, it's a pretty delightful cross. And I think most Oxford players just would have expected Cumming to deal with it, but it was just over his head. Rather annoying, because as I said, it just felt Oxford were getting comfortable. And we were back to 1-1. Whilst you got a huge surge from the crowd, and you kind of expected that to lead Preston forward, you never really saw that sustained pressure from Preston once they got back to 1-1 in this game. There were 2 more changes for Oxford with about 15-20 minutes to go. Rodrigues and Goodrum were replaced by Sibley and Dembele. First time we've seen Dembele for a while. Actually, he came on for sub in the other game. But this was a good opportunity for Dembele to provide some pace on the break that Oxford have been craving all afternoon. And with 10 minutes to go, you still maybe felt Preston would be the more likely to get the next goal. But they were still struggling to create some chances. And Oxford was still getting some joy on the break. Dembele was picking up the ball in the middle and running at this Preston back line. He was brought down about 25 yards out. And you would think this was perfect Brannigan range to just smash a low effort towards goal. But instead, it was Will Vaults who tried it. It was a good effort, took a deflection, could have gone anywhere, but went just wide. Moved into 6 minutes of added on time. And actually, it was quite nice. Oxford weren't just sitting back and holding on. They did have a couple of attacks up the field to take some time out of the clock. And who knows, if a couple of more better placed passes, they might have got another chance away. But there were no real chances in injury time, and this one ended 1-1. Oxford come away from Deepdale with a precious point. So that brings me on to my final thoughts, and we'll start with the home side in Preston. And look, let's say Preston absolutely deserve something out of this game. And most people would say they deserve to win this game based on the chances they created in the first half alone. I thought Kessler Hayden and Greenwood were pretty good, combining well down that left-hand side. And obviously it was Kessler Hayden who provided that bit of magic with that cross that set up the equaliser. But particularly in the first half, Preston really pushed on to Oxford, and Oxford really struggled to get out of their half, and you just saw Preston creating a lot of chances. In the second half, I felt they struggled to break Oxford down a lot more. Certainly when Oxford went to 3 at the back, you saw Preston almost like run out of ideas, lacking a little bit of inspiration from the forward players as well. Will Keane missed a few chances before sticking hit or tapping that one in from the goal line. But I did think they were maybe trying a little bit too hard, pretty wasteful, a lot of overhit passes, overhit crosses, and he did end up making it quite comfortable in the end for Oxford. And I know you probably would have been really frustrated with this game. You'd be thinking this is a game you should have won it, and really, yes, you should have done based on the first half, as what I said. But I felt that I've seen other sides really push on and cause Oxford a lot of trouble in second halves of games. I didn't really see that from Preston today. I mean, maybe it's that Christmas period and you run out of a little bit of steam. But as I say, I didn't really see a lot from those forward players that really worried me, particularly in that second half. I thought Oxford dealt with the balls into the box pretty well. So let me know, Preston fans, if you're watching this. Thank you very much for watching. What does Heckingbottom need to do to strengthen this side, to give you a little bit more inspiration going forward? Because you're a bloody hard side to beat, but you draw a lot of games rather than winning them, which just leaves you in that still leaves you in that annoying situation where you're looking over your shoulder rather than looking up the table. So yeah, let me know what you need. I mean, you'll probably be a bit sick of playing Oxford. We've kind of taken 4 points off you this season somehow. But there we go. That's how it works out sometimes. Good luck for the rest of the season, and hopefully we'll see you again next year. And that brings me on to Oxford United. And first and foremost, I think most people would have taken a point in this game before the start of play. The fact that we led the game for such a long period of time, regardless of how fortunate the goal was, is a little bit frustrating. We didn't come away with all 3, but beggars can't be choosers. That's still 10 points gained by Rowett in his first 4 games, which is a fantastic return. Let's start with my main positive, and this mainly is on the first half. Jamie Cumming, fantastic. Again, making some key critical saves to keep us in this game. You might be critical and say maybe he could have done better with the cross. I thought it was just out of his reach. There's not much he could have done. But once again, just like most of the games this season, Jamie Cumming, very reliable in goal, just very rarely makes many mistakes at all these days, and arguably you could say he's been Oxford's player of the season so far. But you can't get away from this pretty poor and lacklustre first half that Oxford put together. Other than the fact of us defending well and sitting well in our shape, there was a real lack of pace, lack of width, lack of ideas going forward for Oxford United. And it just made it very easy for Preston to play up against us, which made me think that Rowett maybe didn't get his team selection right. And you have to look at Matt Phillips being the main catalyst for that. You can't really do much about Harris getting in. Harris got injured after 10 minutes. That's a bit annoying. So that was a bit of adversity. And obviously Kioso provided another bit of adversity in the second half. People have commented on it. I'm going to comment on it now. It's really difficult to see what impact Matty Phillips is having on this Oxford United lineup. He's one of those players as well, my brother pointed this out, that looks disinterested. And I'm sure he's not, but he's one of those players that looks like he is. And that's never great, is it, from a fan's point of view? But what you'd want to see from Phillips is, yes, he's not got the pace anymore, but you'd like to see someone that can actually get his foot on the ball and hold the ball up. And you have to say he probably did a decent job defensively, he did still work hard for the team, but he's just not providing anything going forward, especially when you look at the impact Plaheta had over the first 3 games. Phillips coming into the side didn't give anything to Oxford going forward in this game, and Oxford looked much better when he came off. And it makes you think maybe Dembele or even Owen Dale could have started this game and provided maybe a little bit more attacking spark. I'm still hopeful we might see some more from Phillips, but he's starting to think he's just going to be the sort of guy you roll on for the final 15 minutes when you maybe want somebody to hold the ball up top. Back to the positives then, and yeah, I mean, you can't fault the effort from the Oxford players in terms of the work rate they put in defensively to try and protect this lead or protect their goal as best as they possibly could. Yeah, we got an absolute gift of a goal, well put away by Rodrigues, and I can chalk that off now. I've always said Oxford don't get many cheap goals. Well, we've got one. We're still waiting for that penalty, but at least we got that cheap goal maybe for the first time this season. But I still was impressed by the defensive work that Oxford United put in, the shift that everybody put in. I thought that we dealt with balls into our box pretty well in this game. You could tell Preston fancied themselves from their attacking players from getting the ball in the box. And I thought that really Long, once again, and Brown stood up to that. And I thought Thornley did okay when he came on as well. And I actually thought once Oxford switched to wing backs, I actually thought that did actually give us an even better defensive shape in this game and gave us a bit more control in the game. And that was why it was annoying when that goal came when it did, because it just felt Oxford were looking comfortable and maybe almost looking the better side for the first time in the game. Plaheta was a big miss. Obviously he can't be injured because he was on the bench and therefore he would have been willing to play if needed. But yeah, he probably needed a rest, and maybe we won't even see him for the FA Cup next week. Who knows? Maybe you'll give him a nice little break to get back up to full fitness, back for league games. But I expect we probably will see him in that Exeter game. But it was nice to see Dembele came on and have an impact too. He looked good when he got the ball. We've really missed him, haven't he? He's got that ability to beat a man and drive forward. And whether that's on the wing, whether that's in the central areas, we've really missed that. And it's nice to see. And it shows you what another attacking string to our bow that we've got. And yeah, I thought he made a really good impact from the bench. And I do think Dane Scarlett deserves credit. I thought that he, like a lot of players, he wasn't particularly great in the first half, but in the second half I thought he really worked his socks off, really worked hard, really tried to hold the ball up whenever he could, and he actually even won a couple of free kicks, to be fair to him, in the first half to break up play. But I thought this was a sort of game he probably hated because it was a lot of selfless running for no reason, but it didn't go unnoticed by me, and I thought he put a big shift in and worked really, really hard for the team. And that brings me on to this January transfer window. Looks like the Dutch striker that we're going in for, Romani, I mean, I've had people commenting saying that feels like a done deal, and he's already said his farewells. So in the region of €2 million, which both excites and terrifies me to see Oxford spending that amount of money on a player. Obviously, Malcolm Abue has gone back to Crystal Palace. That's not really a surprise. He didn't really have much of an impact. You imagine Ben Nelson must have gone back as well. You would imagine that Will Goodwin, it's only a matter of time before he goes out on loan. They're talking about Wigan maybe coming in for him. That would be a really good move for Goodwin. Hopefully he can get game time and get goals. But I did get the feeling before this game that Gary Rowett, for whatever reason, doesn't fancy Scarlett that much. I don't know why. I've got nothing to base that on. It's just the fact that Buckingham was always keen to make that change, either Harris for Scarlett or Scarlett for Harris, but Rowett's been quite reluctant to give Scarlett any minutes so far. And it made me think that maybe he doesn't have the trust in Scarlett. But maybe that's changed now off the back of the work rate that Scarlett put in today. And certainly if Mark Harris is going to be injured and out of the side, then you would almost think that we have to keep Dane Scarlett around. Otherwise, you're just loaning him back to loan in another player who might not be as good or probably even likely to be worse than what we've had so far from Scarlett. But we definitely do need some more attacking options. We need some more attacking options up front and on the wing as well. We've got Plaheta, we've got Dembele, but you'd like to see another one in there. You almost feel Owen Dale. is probably going to go out. But I feel maybe he is the sort of player Rowett likes, because you got the work rate factor with Owen Dale. You still don't know what's going to happen with the left back situation, and I would imagine there's got to be more steel coming in to that back line in central midfield role. But we're probably going to be talking about the same thing over and over again in that regard. We will just have to wait and see. But we have another little break now, which is lovely to see. We don't have a game midweek when we've got the FA Cup game against Exeter at the weekend, which feels like a bit of a free hit, doesn't it? I mean, there'll be FA Cup purists out there, but for me, it just feels like it doesn't really matter either way. Obviously, I hope we win and go through and get a big draw, but it doesn't really matter. But it'd be good to give some fringe players some game time, and then obviously we move on to Plymouth quite quickly after that one. So I think Rowett will be very appreciative of this whole week of working with the players, where he can get more of his ideas across. But let me know your thoughts, Oxford fans. Let me know what you thought about this Gary Rowett side. There was already some people writing derogatory comments about how boring we looked and how solid we looked. Personally, I don't mind that so far from what I've seen. I quite like seeing a side that's willing to roll the sleeves up and scrap, certainly when we maybe haven't been doing that in recent weeks. It's quite refreshing to see. But when you've seen maybe weeks and weeks and weeks of it, I understand it might get a little bit dull. But let me know down below. I'll be back to do a review of that FA Cup game against Exeter. But other than that, it'll be a nice little break for me as well. Thank you very much, Oxford fans. Leave your comments down below. Preston fans as well. And I will see you in a week's time. Stay safe. Thanks for watching.